Awesome. Welcome to the show. Like I said, my name is Jesse Danner, and I am your host today. Today, we're talking about something near and dear to my heart, and we're talking about my business, Echo Athletics. For those of you that are just checking in, thank you for joining us. And for those of you who have checked in before, welcome back. So, today, we're using this chunk to talk about something that's truly important to me, and that's my small business, Echo Athletics, and everything we've been building for the past 13 years. So, Echo Athletics, what is it? Right? So Echo Athletics was a business that I created after my good friend Echo Shepherd passed away in 2013. And as I was speaking at her funeral, I noticed that there was people all throughout my life sitting in that funeral, in that crowd. At the time, I was dating a Scorpion woman, and her baby's daddy was there, all the way from my teachers, all the way to coworkers that I worked with. And it just made me realize that my friend Echo really did know and connect a lot of people. And as I was up there, I was thinking, how do I create something that instills a feeling that Echo instilled in me with other people, right? So it wasn't just about leagues. It wasn't just about a sport, a recreational sport. It was about community development of adults and youth alike, culture, and honestly, just, bringing people together through play. This feels like a turning point with Echo Athletics because as we sit right now, we're waiting for the World Baseball Classic to be this year, 2026. And then we have the World Cup in 2026. And then we have the Olympics coming to Southern California, which is right, San Diego, Los Angeles area in 2028. So this feels like a great time to lean into what we're doing now, which is building Echo Athletics and kickball nationally, but also internationally. So kickball being more than just a game, right? It's a way that people can connect. It's taught me that people in other countries see this sport as a way to be included into society in sports that maybe they didn't play, right? Soccer, baseball, basketball, the big three sports, right? Even flag football, right? It's a great time as flag football is growing. And shout out to all the young ladies that are making that happen. That's why I think flag football has gotten to the Olympics, because young ladies especially have jumped in and helped elevate that and push the sport. So why Echo Athletics? That's the subject. Why Echo Athletics, right? Started as a simple idea of, I thought I wanted to do dodgeball. And from Oceanside, the beach of Oceanside, to Escondido, there was no dodgeball, right? And then as I started this business, I realized if I'm going to do anything, I need to consider that most things are co-ed these days, especially in 2013, 2012. And I looked that 52% of the population of the United States was women at the time. So I came across dodgeball, as I mentioned, and I tried it for about a season and a half. And I realized, apart from young men, young women also do not like getting hit in the face with playground balls. So I looked into America's favorite pastime, kickball, right? Baseball with your feet. And I always tell people kickball was invented by soccer players who wanted to know what a home run felt like. So as I was looking into this, kickball is played in 32 states at the time in 2013, including in Alaska. And they even played in the White House's backyard, right? There's a park back there that kickball was played in. So I looked closer to where I am from, which is Oceanside, California. And there was no kickball from Oceanside to Escondido, all the way to about maybe was that Encinitas, Caramel Valley area. So I started kickball in the March of 2013, and we've been kicking ever since. I started with adult leagues, right? So I started with regular co-ed 18 and up adult leagues, and I was doing that for about a year and a half in the great city of Oceanside. And that led me to one day in my mom's house, shout out to all of us that live with our parents, I called the city of Carlsbad and asked them, hey, I would like to try this new sport, kickball, and I would like to try it in your city. And Carlsbad said, this is a great time because we tried kickball before at a dirt field, and it didn't take off. They had about 4 teams, but it wasn't self-sustaining. So they offered me to play at Algo Norte Park in the city of Carlsbad, which at the time was the biggest swim complex in San Diego. We are the longest running sport there on Friday nights, and we are still playing out at Algo Norte Park in Carlsbad if you are interested in signing up. We have 4 seasons a year starting this Friday, which today's date is the 22nd of January. We start January 23rd, and we play all the way to the beginning of April, and then we have 3 seasons after that. So we play winter all the way through fall every year. And someone once told me, if you have a business and you are around 4 seasons, That means you are supplying something that people want. So you have a product that is in demand. So where are we now, right? We have co-ed leagues, and this year we are jumping into the new pond of over 40. So we're going to do a 40 and up kickball league, which was passed to me from the great state of Atlanta, or Georgia, from Atlanta. They told me that they do this league there and it's very successful, but also you're allowed to have a little brother or a little sister in the league. What does that mean? So that means each 40 and over team is allowed to have two 30-year-olds on that team. So we are jumping into that. For the last year and a half, about 2 years, we've been doing women's kickball. We are the only women's kickball league that is not on a military base west of Texas. So let that sink in, right? So with that being said, we are doing co-ed kickball now, women's kickball, over 40 kickball for 2026. And starting in this year, 2026 as well, we are starting youth kickball, which to my knowledge has been tried, but there is no youth kickball league in the country right now. I will touch on in a little bit how youth kickball and what kickball is internationally, right? Because there are countries that have interscholastic leagues of kickball, right? With children. In Spanish, it's infantil, right? So little kids, all the way up to adults where it's national. So we'll get into that. We'll dive into that in a little bit. So I want to emphasize that kickball has really led me to where it is, where I am now, and being able to connect with people from other countries, doing giant outdoor game team building events and all that, because kickball works in the structure of inclusion. It has a structure that's not too organized. You can play it with a ball and some things to throw down on the ground to act as bases, right? Whereas if you were to play golf, right, you might need a little bit more to enter that sport. Clubs, ball, a place to play, right? You could do it with other stuff, I'm sure. But that's what makes kickball so accessible, is its low barrier cost of entry. And then also the culture, right? What I've noticed is kickball players seem to be a different breed of athletes compared to soccer players, basketball players, rugby players, football players, right? Every other sport that you can think of. So that's why I think there is always some sort of recess element to it. As we grow up and get older and play kickball, there's still a sense of play to it. So I believe, like I mentioned, kickball works as an entry-level sport because it's very ease of access to get into. And I guess that works for me because community first versus profit first, right? Some of my competition here in San Diego and in California and nationally, right, are focused on how to get the most out of their players. If that means making a price for membership, making a price for t-shirts, making a price for jerseys, offering a cash prize, but then they can offer a registration price that's steeper. Those things as a business owner are great. But I think community and this sport of kickball, much like flag football, is built through the players, the leagues, the coaches that make it sustainable and make it accessible and enjoy playing, right? If you see a father and mother watching their kid play on Friday nights, the dad is probably, or the mom can play on Saturday morning or Sunday afternoon, right? So I think that community first, right? Level accessibility for everybody, it outweighs the profits, right? Quality over quantity, which some companies in San Diego believe the opposite, right? Quantity over quality. And they lean into the fact that you can drink after the game. So we try not to do that, but we try to lean into those community first really pillars that we have, which is including themed weeks every week, right? For our co-ed league and our 40 league and our women's league, we do themed weeks where it's crazy hat, crazy sock week. It is opposite genders week, or we do dress as a twin with somebody, or we do a team theme where everybody dresses up as zoo animals and one of the person's a zookeeper, right? So these are the things that really make a community feel, community vibe for kickball. And if you've played in one of our leagues, it's not just about showing up. You actually come and you're a part of something, right? Which is an example of why we do in-season tournaments, mixing up the teams, right? Doing random drafts and lotteries for teams so people can meet one another instead of just, hey, every week I want to come to be a champion. Not every week's about becoming and determining a champion. Some weeks are about community and team building. So the next subject that I'm jumping into today is the new leagues that we're starting this year. So as I mentioned, that we are growing at an unprecedented rate. And one of the biggest things happening right now with these expansions of leagues is we're not just maintaining, we're trying to grow sustainably and with good quality, right? So the new locations that I have, the new leagues that we are formatting, like I mentioned, was we're still continuing our co-ed on Friday nights in Carlsbad. We're still continuing our women's league, She-They League, on Thursday nights in Oceanside. But this year, this season, this spring, we're starting a 40 and over league. And then we are also starting a youth kickball league that will start in April, May area time. So with that being said, is same locations. Oceanside is where we're starting these things. The parks will be at Lake Park, and the youth kickball will be Capistrano Park in Oceanside off of the 5 freeway. And it's the same rules for the most part, 40 and up. Maybe we'll adjust a couple so everybody, the learning curve and the level of expertise or level of experience is more even. But for the most part, it is the same rules, same balls, same bases, and same ability to peg somebody with the ball. Our women's kickball league, we are still growing. We have 6 teams right now, or interested. We had 6 teams last season, 6 teams hoping that they will return. And our women's league really stands out and I believe grows because it offers young ladies the opportunity to stay active and do something that's not as hyper competitive, but also with a camaraderie feel, right? Our lady teams seem to be a lot more festive and outgoing and participating in our themes and our mid-season, after-season parties, team pictures, because I think it's really a tribal feel. They really do enjoy being out there together and having a sport of their own, a league of their own, if you will. I'm really excited about these over 40 league because I think it's creating a space where all of our players all of our players are aging, correct? But it creates a space where all of our players, hopefully, God willing, will make it to be over 40, can participate, but also just come out and spend more of the idea and more of their time playing the game and getting to know each other, right? Like I mentioned, it's not about being a champion every week, but, you know, the importance of movement and play it grows as we get older, right? So as the older we get, we should not be playing less. So I do believe that the youth sport matters, right? Youth kicking ball, why is it important? Kickball league, why is it important? It's because if we're looking to build sustainability, we're looking to keep adults active, but also have youth being active, right? That habit starts at a young age. So why are these social recreational sports leagues important? Right. So even in youth and in adults, it's important because it serves for mental health and it also serves for connection, which is a human desire, right? Being part of something bigger than ourselves, but also the mental health aspect of, hey, I'm out here getting fresh air, getting air in my lungs, letting my blood pump, right? It's kind of like you're seeing a cardiologist or a lung specialist or, doctors, a bone specialist because you're running, right? So all these things, play does include and does incorporate these aspects that you get from specialists for health, mental health, physical health, etc. So what I see when I see our leagues playing on a Friday night, on a Thursday night, soon to be Saturday morning for youth, I see what happens when people find spaces where they belong, right? And that's what keeps me doing what I'm doing, is to help provide spaces to youth, women, co-ed, over 40, all of players alike, that they can have a space that maybe they don't see themselves playing in a semi-recreational professional soccer league. They don't see themselves playing in the basketball leagues at the 24-hour fitness that, people get in fist fights over, or they don't see themselves playing baseball and trying to catch a 90-mile-an-hour line drive. So I think kickball serves a space at the table, has a place at the table, and serves the people at the table in a way that other sports can and cannot do, right? Baseball is baseball. Softball was created to create and serve a demographic of people who just don't play baseball, right? In Carlsbad, there's a 65 and up softball league. So I don't know if we're going to do 65 and up kickball, but, I cannot tell the future. So leads me to, how do we get the youth league started? And back to what I said in the beginning was it's a great time and things are lining up, right, with the international play and people wanting to lean into that patriotism in the sense of representing their country in an athletic event versus another country and possibly make a lifelong friendship with an opponent, correct? So starting with youth is how I got into this aspect. Is I used to do youth sports before COVID, which feels like a lifetime ago. Used to do a sport that hopefully if you're hearing this, you know it. It was BBK, which is basketball, baseball, kickball. So I did a league of that, and we did Vista Unified School District for the first season, and we played with 4 different schools who traveled amongst each other for their after-school program, and we're playing one another in this sport, which is basically kickball with a basketball twist. Every kick, you have to run around the court, you have to make it before they score a basket. So I'm trying to do that, replicate that here with youth after school kickball. We will be starting this February in the Oceanside Unified School District after school program called BASE programs, which, if I'm remembering correctly, they have connection with 14 schools in the Oceanside School District, along with the schools, elementary schools located on Camp Pendleton. So our pilot season is this spring. We're going to start with 2 schools with 20 kids at each school, and that'll give us 4 teams to practice during the week, and then our last few weeks will accumulate with a tournament where all the teams will play each other. We'll do a seeded tournament, have some participation trophies and some winning trophies, and we will go from there, right? So this is huge, right? Because if you want any sport to succeed, you have to meet all demographics of that, right? And if you want future sports or future athletes to play that sport, you have to train them and teach them and get them hooked at a young age, right? And if you're here listening from the United States, kickball was a recess sport, right? You look forward to going out on recess and dominating your friends just to come back and, I don't know, read English or read mathematics. So we're trying to take that into the after school space. So I would just say that the after school program is probably one of the things that I'm most proud of, because this is where impact really happens. Not only did I meet my friend Echo in elementary school, but also I know that some of these lifelong bonds with friends can grow and be cultivated outside of these sports that we play at recess. So, as I mentioned, why does kickball work? Why does it work for kids? It works for kids because it's safe, simple, and inclusive, right? Everybody got a chance to play at recess, and much like dodgeball, right? Out of schools, you can't peg each other. So that's okay. You take that aspect away from the game. There's still ways you can make it competitive and still have the gist of the sport without pegging each other. So along with that sport, I feel like what I've seen is people learn through play, right? You can teach teamwork through playing a game. You can teach confidence. You can teach movement, right? How to position your body, how to balance, how to stop and change direction. All these things are taught through sports. I really also think that the accessibility for schools and districts is greater than ever, because after COVID and after these kind of times where we're pent up inside and kids didn't get to go out and play, there was a time that we had to teach kids how to play again, right? So I feel like it's very accessible, low cost barrier entry for schools and districts to supply this sport for after school programs and use that budget, right? What it could cost, $75 a kid, $100 a kid, $60 a kid, whatever price you put, but it's accessible because it's a organized, safe environment that inspires and teaches confidence and movement through play. This also leads into coaching education and structure to teachers and to staff, right? And how do the teachers and the staff that spend the most time with kids after school program, how do they connect with those kids through play, right? And through a game that they played when they were kids, hopefully. I also believe in building habits early, right? So play like kickball and sports like kickball can help build habits early for children, teaching them things like teamwork, working together to accomplish a goal, how to overcome adversary, right? And how to see a problem and work through it. And also how to problem solve in real time, right? They say baseball, kickball, softball, these sports that are played on a diamond are like moving chess players, right? You kick to move first base to second base, et cetera, et cetera. So it's teaching them these kind of strategic opportunities, right? And healthy habits, right? Why is it important to stay limber, to stay healthy, to practice running, stretching, recuperating, right? Taking care of your body so it takes care of you. These are all taught through sports. If we want better adult leagues, better communities, and better leaders, we have to start teaching them when they're young, right? These athletes can grow and go on to teach other kids and how to play the sport. And also, who knows, right? It always helps having a peer of yours pour into you and motivate you and to believe in yourself in ways that you didn't believe in yourself before, and that'll help you motivate you, right, to do better. So that's the goal, right? Is this after school program will lead into this, right? We'll do that for 8 weeks. And then after that, my plan is to start a youth kickball league on Saturdays in April time to play on Saturdays for roughly 8 to 9 weeks. There are some weeks in there, Mother's Day is in there. I want to say Easter break is in there. So the season may be, for example, 10 weeks, but we're actually playing for 8 weeks because we're taking those weeks off for holidays and to spend time with family, right? So that's the next one, is to do after school program, and that'll lead into youth kickball on Saturdays, and we'll play through that. And that is leading into our next subject, right? Is I don't want to jump too much into the Saturday kickball league because it's much of the same, right? We're going to create teams. We're going to find coaches, volunteers to help us out with that, reaching out to our Echo Athletics players who play now, who want to volunteer to help with that. And then hopefully building anticipation and building putting more eyes on the sport for kickball for kids, which will lead and hopefully snowball into our next project that I have on the books for summer here in San Diego. So officially, we are, as Echo Athletics, we are the sports director of the kickball portion for youth for the California State Games in this year, 2026. So we're using the Saturday program, Saturday League, to build interest and to build hype and to hopefully recruit more teams to participate in this once weekend in July California State Game youth kickball tournament. People ask me what's the point of this California State Games? Why not just, keep doing a league and focus and grind on that? Is I believe that the idea of, Olympic style games would, like the California State Games, which if you do not know, the California State Games is the Olympic style sporting event here in San Diego that happens annually, and it was put on by the company, I want to say, that did the Holiday Bowl here in San Diego. And this game tournament, Olympic style tournament series, has sports that are not included necessarily in the Olympics, or if they are included in the Olympics, they are not as prime time as those, right? So the sports that are in the California State Games this year that I've seen is everything from archery, BMX, rugby, softball, I want to say pickleball, and then hockey, for instance. So these are sports that are participating in the California State Games and have been for the past few years, and kickball is making that run now, which I believe is a great platform and a seat at the table and a great opportunity to really a stage, if you will, that kickball has not had before. It'll help establish legitimacy and it'll scale this event, right? I'm sure there are plenty of kids who sit on the bench when they're playing baseball, when they're playing basketball, when they're playing soccer, because maybe they're not the next Jordan or Michael or David Beckham or what have you. But that doesn't mean they don't have skill, right? So that's what we're aiming for. We're aiming for those group of children who may be sitting on the bench in other sports. In kickball, they don't have to do that, right? Everybody gets a chance. It's super accessible. And that's what I hope the California State Games will help us broadcast to not only Southern California, but to California and nationally, is that kickball has a spot at the table, right? You know what the California State Games are, right? They happen every July. There's a huge parade that happens with all the teams that are participating, all the sports that are participating out at what once was called Qualcomm Stadium. It is now the Snapdragon Stadium. So that parade happens every July before the games kick off, where kids get to take part in a walking parade. And then there's also a kids zone. I believe they have a little huge mascot who's an eagle, who's in a suit out there, and you can take pictures with them. They have bounce house zones, food vendors, all that. It's kind of a sports party for youth, and they do have adult sports, but focusing on the youth, right? So I believe youth kickball belongs here because, as I mentioned, it really does provide an avenue for children who play other sports, but maybe are not the best at that sport, or if they are, it's overly saturated, so they still don't get time to play. The goal here, is for youth kickball to open those doors for kids that maybe don't want to play sports all year round, or maybe not looking to enter a sport that requires a lot of money to be spent on equipment or traveling, right? I believe if I listened correctly or heard correctly, is youth sports is $1 billion industry right now. So there's definitely a lot of want and demand for youth sports, but they seems to be oversaturated. And then you get into the problem of right? I played baseball. I didn't go professional, but my son is about to go professional as long as I push him and let him know that my love for him is determined on whether we win or lose this game. So we're trying to steer away from that, right? We're trying to steer into the whole kickball is kicks for everybody. Kids that would be on the benches, kids that are looking for something else to do in between seasons, if it's in between soccer season, in between softball season, in between basketball, or any other sport, right? So looking to capture and sweep those kids up that would maybe get lost in the fray. What does this mean? What does this mean for families, for kids and coaches, right? It means that there is a new opportunity to grow a sport that we all know, much like flag football. But as I mentioned before, it takes buy-in and it takes participation from not just one gender of kids or one age demographic of kids. It requires all kids of any gender to participate. And I strongly believe that's why we have flag football here on the Olympics coming up. We have flag football on NFL commercials all season. And that didn't just happen overnight, right? That happened because there was serious buy-in from young kids, let alone young ladies, to participate. And I believe if the MLB, if you're listening, or the adult softball league that started, or any professional softball, if you're listening, it will take support and legitimacy and a push from your company specifically, because that's how people are going to buy into this idea of legitimacy. If you don't, that's fine. We'll see you at the California State Games and we'll see you at International Kickball, but it'll definitely help. So long-term vision. Long-term vision for this is to grow as a state, right? California, to put kickball for youth on the map and also put kickball on the map for adults as we're looking to do international matches. Currently, as it sits, there are at least 52 national adult kickball events that take place in the United States. Our company, Echo Athletics, is the only company in the world, I believe, if I'm wrong, let me know, but we're the only company in the world that is facilitating adult international kickball between two countries for the last 4 years. And we're preparing to do our 5th year this year. And I'm in talks with Canada, Panama, Peru, and Colombia to join us as well. Right now, the past 4 years, we've just done all USA versus Mexico. And I believe this is all about saying why kickball deserves a seat at the table, right? Is because internationally, kickball is already known. But we're looking to grow that. And shout out to the Mexico teams who have won the past 4 years when we play versus. So United States, we're not really kicking butt there, but it's all the more reason to build the pressure of Mexico. They're obviously asking for us to come out every year because they haven't lost yet. So wait until that changes. As I mentioned, kickball, I believe, deserves a seat at the table for sports. My idea for this is to do youth, to do 40 and over, to continue doing co-ed. But my pride and joy, my baby, if you will, is the World Kickball Classic Tournament. This is my personal global vision to get kickball a seat at the table. I remember starting kickball and thinking, I want to see this at the Olympics. That was my life goal, right? And a gentleman from Wacapalooza, Sadao, told me that why limit yourself to that, right? If you ask athletes who play baseball, would they rather be on the Olympic baseball team for their country or if they want to win the World Baseball Classic? Same with the World Cup. Would I rather be on Team USA for the Olympics for soccer, or would I rather win the World Cup for Team USA? There's a big difference. So I think that's the way to position ourselves now, is to lean into this brand of the World Kickball Classic, or El Mundial de Kickball, if you will, and really try to grow that on its own personal branding. So on the international side, I've been hosting, like I mentioned, this World Kickball Classic tournament for multiple years now, and every year it's gotten bigger. To give you some perspective, is the first year we did this, it was me, my team that I created from 20 different players in the United States versus one league in Mexico, and they had 2 teams that participated. Flash forward now, our last tournament for last year, what we did was we had 2 teams from the United States with players from 5 different states, including Texas, Georgia, New York, wherever have you on the East Coast or the East South Coast. And we played against 4 different leagues in Mexico from 3 different states in Mexico. In case you were wondering how many states Mexico has, it is 32 states. So we play from two leagues, excuse me, from Ensenada, which is Baja California North. And we play from a team from San Quintin, which is Baja California North. And we play from a team from Chihuahua and also Mazatlan. And then we're looking into one from Yucatan, which is in Merida, which is like the east-west part of Mexico. If you know where Cancun is, that is where that is. So we've successfully held this tournament multiple years, and the origins of this tournament simply came from me being proudly half Mexican, half African American, and being able to speak Spanish, and being married to a woman that primarily speaks Spanish as her first, second, and third language. And we only argue in Spanish. So I feel like I got pretty good at Spanish to be able to negotiate business. So that's where this origin came from, was being able to make a connection through a sport that I love with my company named after my friend who passed away, in a way that the other companies in the United States that do kickball tournaments cannot do, right? Whether they have a different business model, whether they don't speak Spanish, or whether they don't care about playing other countries. I think that's what gives us and myself the leg up. So USA versus Mexico. Why I think this works, kickball as a thing, is it works because almost every street in San Diego is in Spanish. The food we love, when someone asks you, what's Californian food, what's San Diegan food, it's Mexican food. So you go to another state, pick a state, I don't care, Arkansas, Indiana, Texas, even Texas, is their idea of Mexican food is very different than ours. And I think it's because of location. So San Diego is the biggest metropolitan city in the United States, the southern United States border. We're the biggest city. So our influence comes from them, which is unrelated. But Charger fans, that is why the Chargers left, because you didn't lean into that. Lean into the cross-border exchange of culture, right? So that's why I think it works, right? USA and Mexico have always had a little brother, little sister, or little brothers, little sisters rivalry, right? When it comes to soccer, when it comes to baseball, it's just about, fighting the person next to you, right? It's who's better. So I think that's why it leans into it, because it's a recreational adult children's sport that we can still bring to a level that is, hey, it's our country versus your country. And sadly, United States, we've lost every time. We've won games, but I think we've been down there 4 years and we've won maybe 2 or 3 games overall. So just to put it in perspective, I am super proud of the growth that we've had over the couple years. And as it sits right now in 2026, in January, I am getting more interest from other countries who want to be a part of this, from more states that want to be a part of this. I'm getting support nationally now from players that, what I hear, are getting tired of going to the same event every year, ran by the same company with the same teams, right? Some of these events that people are going to, the teams, they have 20 teams, but it's really just recycling of players, right? I've been to some of these events that had a 50 plus teams, and they're using throwdown bases that you could buy from Walmart, So I think, as I mentioned earlier, it's quality over quantity, right? It would be great to get rich off kickball, but it would also be great to sit in another country and see 4 different countries playing each other in kickball, and being able to travel to this country and represent my country on my back through this game. So that's why I think is the growth is great, but it's also the quality. Why international competition matters. So before we walked away from this Olympic dream, it was to do maybe the World Games, right? So the World Games, if you do not know, is the sister, maybe the stepsister of the Olympics, right? So it's the sports that are not in the Olympics, but the World Games is quite popular. So I reached out to them, and their push is what really put me and got this ball rolling. Was they recommended that in order to be involved in the World Games, it is to first be played between 3 different countries on 3 different continents, and also have a governing body of the sport. If you Google governing body of kickball, the company Waka comes up. But Waka has told me themselves they have no interest in growing the sport, or growing the game internationally. They do not want to do stuff with youth, which is part of that requirement to get into the World Games and to get into the Olympics. You need to show that you're pouring into the youth. So I think not only to it doesn't, not only is it important to have international matches to get into something like the Olympics or the World Games, but it's important because my league, being such a little small potato, right? My players now have something to feed into, right? My league can serve as a feeder into the World Kickball Classic, right? Giving teams something extra to shoot for. And that's the message I'm trying to convey to my competition, the other kickball organizers, facilitators in the United States, is we can all have a piece of our pie, but it's also, are you thinking about dessert? What's after that is how do we, your league in, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, after you win your league tournament, and then you go and play in this national tournament that plays every year, what's after that, right? Wouldn't you, I would hope, players have the umph, the gumph, the desire to want to play for something bigger themselves, which in this case, representing the United States in kickball. And I think it's always a great idea to have that kind of push, because you're going to be in another country representing your country to play kickball, and you're going to meet someone that's doing the same thing representing their country, and you guys can become lifelong Facebook friends. So this pours into cultural exchange through sport, right? I was working with two gentlemen in Ensenada who helped me plan this. Obviously, right, all good things come to an end, right? Hall & Oates came to an end. I mean, what other great things? The Sopranos came to an end, so great things come to an end. And obviously, unfortunately, we stopped working together. But on the bright side, it was because I believe I see the cultural exchange through sport. They did not, unfortunately. They just saw the dollar bills, right? But my idea is that this kind of World Kickball Classic can pour into being more than a game, right? It can be a cultural exchange. And I will touch on this in this next segment about the Venezuelan national sport. But I say this to say a World Kickball Classic should be more than just kickball games. It should be a party at the end of the night. Maybe before we play, we do a team building activity. Plenty of those dances that we do in the United States at weddings. Guess what? Mexico does the same thing. So the last event we had a party, and people in Mexico taught us their dance, which is called the Caballo Dorado. And it is much like, I want to say, a dance that we have, like the electric slide, right? They do it at a wedding. Everybody loves it, and it speeds up. So it was just cool to see cultural things being passed through sport. In this case, it was a sporting party that we had, but I thought it was so cool. And that's what it's about for me, is to have, if we have 3 countries coming together for this tournament and we're having a dinner together, and then we do, a giant Jenga contest, or we do some sort of giant sport contest where they get a little winner out of that, it'll make them so much happier to see each other the day after when they have to play, and they make a play, and maybe they don't agree on the rule or the call, but hey, I know this person that I just did this game with last night. Maybe I won't go out their throat. And that just ties into 2 things, right? Cultural exchange, sportsmanship, great things when you're having this international competition. So I don't want this, and I never wanted this Kickball Classic to be a one-off. I want this to be something that exists long after I'm done. Which leads me into, is there anything that's happened like this before? So starting here locally in the United States, well, starting in San Diego, there is not one of these teams that I'm about to mention. If you zoom out in the United States, there are more than 50 women kicking ball team. You heard me correctly. I said kicking ball. That's not kickball. Why is Jesse saying this? Because in the 70s, a teacher from physical education, a PE teacher, came to the United States on a visit, and they saw kickball, and they went home to Venezuela, and they taught it the kickball. But I believe, much like losing things in translation, the word kicking ball refers to the action of what you're doing to play this sport. You're kicking a ball. So this teacher taught her students, which later grew to the universities playing each other, which is now, if you Google kicking ball Venezuela, kicking ball is the national women's sport of Venezuela. They have a federation, a governing body. They play in elementary school all the way to college. You can get scholarships to play this. So why have I not heard of this? That was my first thought. Why have I not heard of this? So I started doing some research, right? Introduced myself to one of the directors of the federation in Venezuela. He shared the rules with me in Spanish, which They did not have in English, so I translated them, but thankfully I can do that type of thing. But I translated them, and then I thought, okay, now what do I do with this, right? Do I show somebody? How do I get people to buy in? What's my closest range or distance to play? That's when I said is I ended up Instagram. The greatest thing is I found that there are over 50 accounts of professional, semi-professional adult women teams that are posting and they're participating. So Texas has a lot of them. Florida has a lot of them. So my idea is kicking ball. Maybe not going to call it that yet, but the rules that we're teaching for the youth, the leagues that I just talked about, the California State Games, the after school program, the Saturday League for youth, they will be using kicking ball rules. And how does that differ? Is it differs slightly from, I want to say baseball and softball. It differs from kickball, but the rule is example, you can't peg anybody in kicking ball, right? You take that out of it. There goes the, oh, this is dangerous for kids to play. Use a smaller ball. So use like a size 4 soccer ball. That's the professional size that they use in Venezuela for adults and youth. And I believe it makes the game go faster. And it also makes it feel more of like a, hey, this is going back and forth. The ball's traveling quickly. It builds that kind of interest for the spectators. So with that being said, is I mentioned Venezuela has professional federation that they play this. Peru has a professional federation that plays this. Colombia has professionals that play this. Mexico City has their own kicking ball team. So I am looking into how do we make this kicking ball thing a reality, and it can be something that people want to put their name on in order to advertise, to market, to get their brand in front of all of our players and our spectators and the people that are watching, right? I challenge you right now, if you're listening to my voice and watching this video, go to YouTube and type in Kicking Ball Venezuela, and you will have live broadcasts or previously recorded live broadcasts of games where it's a 9-inning game, right? Fouls and strikes are separate. And, you know, getting the ball to the base, having one home plate, right? Timing, all these things where that lines up specifically more to baseball and softball. It really gave me hope because, like I mentioned and someone mentioned to me, softball was created to open the door for more people to play. Why can't kicking ball do this? You know, so that's my challenge to you listening to this, is to go and listen to that. So how does this all relate? So I decided to see if I can create a team to participate in the American Kicking Ball Association League, or association, I will say. There right now is about 10 teams that participate. Not all teams have stayed on, right? I've talked to teams that were participating years ago and they chose not to for their personal reasons and the organization reasons, but that has not hindered me or lessened my desire to see if we can get a team of ladies from San Diego to travel to Colorado, to Utah, to Oregon to play some of these teams, because especially in this day and age, right? Talking about international relations with other people from other countries or people who live here from other countries, kicking ball is here because the women from Venezuela, specifically in the community, husbands, children, they wanted a piece of home, right? When they moved here, this is their home now, right? But they wanted to do something that made them feel like home. So I am looking to do something like that with our ladies here, to give them a piece of home, but also to give them a piece of, hey, there's ladies here from this country that want to play that sport and bond with you through that sport. So it's really important for me. Something that I learned was it's important to honor where kicking ball and kickball comes from, especially for women in Latin American communities. And I am still looking for ladies to join this team. Our team here in San Diego is called Las Adelitas. And if you don't know what Adelitas are, they were the women who participated in the revolution, right? They helped fight for the freedom, in this case, Mexico. They helped fight for that freedom, which basically gives us a team full of badass women who are rebels, right? So that's what we're looking to do. That's our team name, San Diego Kicking Ball. We are known right now as the Adelitas. Here we are, right? Women are leading a whole bunch of things right now. They're leading in sports, they're leading in business, they're doing a lot of these things, right? So that's what really drives it for me, is to create something for women, a space for women to make it their own, right? I can give the rules, I can bring the bases, bring the balls, but outside of that, they're going to create the league for their own, right? Hey, this is how we treat each other. This is the vibe that we give. If you can't come here and be so-and-so, right? You can't be nice or say something nice to somebody, right? We don't need those type of players here. There's other sports that will take you, I'm sure. But kickball is, in this space, kicking ball is a woman-led sport. So I believe the history of that matters, and I believe knowing that history of kicking ball and knowing now that it's, a national sport in some Latin American countries will just give us more leeway and more support when we want to bring this game to the national, international level. So you cannot build the future of a sport if you're ignoring its past. So this is what I will leave you with, right? My call to action. I want to end with something strong. So when I talk about Echo Athletics, I'm not just talking about today or this season, right? We're talking about building something sustainable, inclusive, and real, right? So I encourage you to look into our website, right? Join a league, support our youth programs, coach, volunteer if you can, or just maybe partner to help some kids with scholarships to come and play in our leagues, right? That's always an opportunity. So if you can, if you're not interested in kickball, that's fine. But share this story with someone that you know, because you never know who will be interested in this. And if kickball has ever given you joy or connection or confidence, this is my way of giving that back to the youth, to women athletes, to over 40 athletes, and to all co-ed athletes from here, near and far. So thank you again for your time listening to me. And once again, if you're interested in playing kickball with Echo Athletics, please come kick it with us.